Over the last year or so, we've seen narratives like AI, GameFi, and DeepIn take dozens of cryptocurrencies to new all-time highs. So far, it's been mostly hype, but eventually it will turn to actual adoption. And that means all the cryptos in these narratives are eventually going to require infrastructure, specifically decentralized data storage and computation. Filecoin is the leader in this niche by a wide margin. And that's why today we're going to explain what Filecoin is, bring you up to speed on the project's most important updates, and tell you just how much potential its FIL coin could have. My name is Guy, you're watching Coin Bureau. Stay tuned. I'll start by saying that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's purely educational content that's meant to inform you about this crypto project. And I'll also note that nobody at the Coin Bureau holds FIL at the time that this video was posted, and we will be objective in our analysis. That said, it's been almost 3 years since we last covered Filecoin, so we reckon a refresher is in order. So, Filecoin was founded by computer scientist Juan Benet in 2017, though it's technically been in the works since 2014. Now, Filecoin is technically the incentive layer for the Interplanetary File System, or IPFS. More about that in a second. Now, the IPFS and Filecoin were built by Protocol Labs, a US software company founded by Juan in 2014, and Filecoin's ongoing development is coordinated by the Filecoin Foundation, a US non-profit. The goal of both entities is to create the technology required for a truly decentralized internet. Filecoin is, or rather was, famous for holding the largest completed ICO to date in late 2017. It raised almost $260 million across 4 ICO rounds in August and September 2017, the largest of which raised over $205 million. Filecoin is also infamous for launching its mainnet 3 years later in October 2020. As I just mentioned, Filecoin is the incentive layer for the IPFS. The IPFS can be simply understood as a peer-to-peer file sharing protocol like BitTorrent. The difference, though, is that the IPFS retrieves data based on the unique address assigned to it, whereas BitTorrent retrieves data based on where it's being stored. This small detail makes it possible for the IPFS to create a truly, interplanetary file system. For example, say you wanted to download an image. Well, instead of needing to retrieve it from the server on Earth where it's being stored, it could theoretically be retrieved from anywhere where that unique address is detected by the IPFS. Obviously, there needs to be some incentive for people to provide storage space for the IPFS, and this is where Filecoin comes in. It makes it possible for storage providers to sell their storage space to users. The price of storage depends on supply and demand and can be as low as a few cents per terabyte per month. Note that this is significantly cheaper than centralized cloud storage services. Naturally, users pay for Filecoin storage using the FIL coin. When a user pays for storage on Filecoin, the associated storage provider must submit a proof to the Filecoin blockchain that they've stored the data. This is called proof of replication, and it's often misunderstood as being Filecoin's consensus mechanism. Similarly, storage providers must periodically submit proofs to the Filecoin blockchain that they're still storing the user's data, and this is called proof of spacetime, and it's likewise misunderstood as being Filecoin's consensus mechanism. Filecoin's actual consensus mechanism is called proof of storage. Logically, in proof of storage, the likelihood of being selected to add a block of transactions to the Filecoin blockchain and earn FIL depends on how much storage capacity you've committed, kind of like proof of stake. The catch is that Filecoin technically consists of a chain of tipsets, not blocks per se. And if you want more info there, then you can refer to the link in the description. Now, to ensure that storage providers process transactions correctly and honor their storage contracts, they must lock a portion of FIL coins. These FIL coins are slashed, i.e. burned, if storage providers try to manipulate transactions or fail to conduct the 2 storage proofs I mentioned a few moments ago. And as you might have gathered by now, FIL is the native cryptocurrency coin of the Filecoin blockchain. It's used to pay for transaction fees and storage fees. As of March last year, it's also possible to lend FIL to storage providers for them to lock up. And lending FIL currently yields around 8% per year. Not bad. Anyways, FIL has a maximum supply of 2 billion, which was distributed as follows. 20% to the founders, Protocol Labs and the Filecoin Foundation, 10% to investors, and the remainder to storage mining rewards. Notably, the release of storage mining rewards depends on network performance, and I'll also note that around 40 million FIL have been burned so far by malicious storage providers. The approximate vesting schedule for FIL can be seen here, and you'll notice it's quite aggressive and lasts for a very long time. This strong and steady supply growth has played a role in suppressing FIL's price, but it appears that the demand side of the equation is starting to improve. More on that in a moment. And by the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to smash that like button to give it a boost and subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell so you don't miss our next altcoin update. I was trapped inside a cage made out of the daily grind.
I was so unfulfilled. I felt like a blank sheet of A4 paper.
Something was missing from my life, but I didn't know what.
But then I found what I'd been missing.
The Coin Bureau deals page was the answer to my prayers.
It had everything I needed to make me complete.
Exchange sign-up bonuses of up to $50,000.
The biggest discounts on the best hardware wallets.
Trading fee discounts of up to 60% on the best crypto exchanges.
Exclusive altcoin alpha.
Thank you, Coin Bureau, for bringing me back to life. Now, it's safe to say that a lot has happened since we last covered Filecoin, so we won't have time to go through every single update here. And more importantly, we couldn't find information about some of these updates, as the websites for Filecoin's official blogs failed to load due to IPFS. We'll come back to that, don't worry. Anyhow, if you're a super fan of the Coin Bureau, you'll recall that we last covered Filecoin in late March 2021. At the time, FIL's price was going parabolic. In April 2021, it was revealed that this pump was due to Chinese retail investors aping into FIL. And this made sense as many storage providers were based there. If you've been in crypto since 2021, you'll recall that the Chinese government cracked down on all forms of crypto mining that year. And this appears to have impacted Filecoin as well, since many storage providers subsequently migrated to Singapore and elsewhere, much like the Bitcoin miners did. What you may not recall is that there was actually a second wave of crypto crackdowns in China later that year, specifically in September 2021. The Chinese government effectively cracked down on altcoins by outlawing all sorts of trading activities. As you'll soon see, this seems to have suppressed FIL's price. Anywho, in October 2021, the Flow blockchain integrated Filecoin storage for its NFTs. This is more significant than you think because Meta announced in 2022 that it would be testing its NFTs on Flow. Although this initiative was dropped last March, it could be brought back during the bull market. Now, in November 2021, Filecoin revealed the Filecoin Virtual Machine, or FVM, which would support its smart contract functionality and open the door to computation on top of Filecoin's stored data. The FVM launched on Filecoin in March 2023, coincidentally the same month when Meta dropped its NFTs. In February 2022, meanwhile, Protocol Labs unveiled its launchpad, which would seek to incubate crypto projects trying to decentralize the internet, particularly those leveraging IPFS and Filecoin. Filecoin also deepened its partnership with Polygon to store data related to NFTs and the metaverse. In May 2022, the Filecoin Foundation partnered with military arms manufacturer Lockheed Martin to literally take the IPFS to space. This happened in January of this year, with Lockheed Martin launching an IPFS-compatible satellite, which then communicated with servers on Earth. Pretty crazy. The craziest part, though, is that this partnership was reportedly penned at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos. For context, the Davos conference is basically where the world's elite decide what they're going to do, and you can find out what they said this year using the link in the description. Now, in October 2022, Filecoin launched its content delivery network dubbed Saturn, making it easier to retrieve data being stored by storage providers. Filecoin also launched the Decentralized Storage Alliance, an initiative which seeks to help Web 2 companies transition to Web 3. In February 2023, Protocol Labs announced that it had cut more than a fifth of its workforce, citing the, quote, extremely challenging economic downturn caused by high inflation and high interest rates. At the time, Juan made the chilling prediction that this crypto bear market could be longer than the others. Then, in May 2023, IPFS announced the launch of Durin, a mobile app that's compatible with its decentralized storage network. This was a big milestone, as until that point, it was hard to extend IPFS functionality to mobile devices. IPFS also noted that the app would serve as a sandbox for developers building mobile apps with IPFS. Filecoin also announced that it had partnered with the Brave browser to add automatic NFT backups to IPFS in the Brave wallet. For reference, Brave is a privacy-preserving browser based on Chrome that's very popular in crypto. The browser currently boasts around 70 million monthly active users and counting. Another thing that happened in May 2023 was the SEC warning Grayscale that FIL was an unregistered security, according to the regulator's ever-changing criteria. As most of you will know, the practical effect of being labeled a security is being delisted from crypto exchanges in the US. Not surprisingly, FIL was delisted from a series of US exchanges shortly after. What was surprising was that the SEC had gone out of its way to single out Filecoin. This was surprising because the SEC again stated that FIL was an unregistered security in its lawsuits against Coinbase and Binance 1 month later. What this suggests is that the SEC has been actively targeting Filecoin for whatever reason. Our best guess is that it has to do with the fact that Filecoin's primary entities are based in the United States, and Filecoin itself raised big bucks. This makes it easier for the SEC to go after Filecoin and try and get its grubby paws on all that cash. Regardless, in September 2023, Filecoin partnered with Consensus. For those unfamiliar, Consensus is one of the biggest companies building on Ethereum and was actually founded by Ethereum co-founder Joe Lubin. This partnership foreshadows more Filecoin integrations in Ethereum's ecosystem. Then, in November 2023, Protocol Labs announced that IPFS and another project they'd created called libp2p would be spinning out from the company. In plain English, they'd be launching their own non-profit organizations and would no longer be directly under the control of Protocol Labs, underscoring their growth. In January of this year, meanwhile, Protocol Labs partnered with Chainlink. To our understanding, the partnership involves collaboration between the development initiatives of both projects, such as Protocol Labs' aforementioned launchpad. This should result in more innovation for both Filecoin and Chainlink. Then, just last month, Glyph, a so-called liquid leasing protocol on Filecoin, raised $4.5 million from crypto VCs to expand its offerings. This is the FIL lending that I was referring to earlier. Per the liquid leasing terminology, Glyph not only lets you lend your FIL to storage providers, but also use that lent FIL in DeFi via iFIL. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of liquid staking, be sure to check out our video about Lido Finance using the link in the description, by the way. Now, given the mix of bullish and bearish updates around FIL over the last 3 years, its price action shouldn't really come as a shock. FIL has essentially been trading sideways since last spring, though it has experienced a few short-lived rallies along the way. At the time of shooting this video, it's in one of those. As I hinted earlier, FIL's lackluster price action is not just due to the mix of bullish and bearish headlines, but also due to the enormous amount of supply that's entered the market over the last 3 years. Historical data from CoinMarketCap suggests that FIL's supply has increased by almost 10x since March 2021. To be exact, FIL's supply has increased from around 60 million to over 500 million, for a grand total of around 460 million. Assuming an average price of $10 per FIL during that period, which is conservative, this works out to nearly $5 billion of sell pressure over the last 3 years. The key words there, however, are over the last 3 years. When you break it down by month, you're dealing with roughly $140 million of sell pressure every 4 weeks, which is still quite a bit considering the demand side of the equation. And only around 8% of Filecoin's storage capacity is being rented out. To be exact, Filecoin is currently storing around 1.9 exabytes of data, compared to its capacity of almost 25 exabytes. Filecoin's official storage statistics note that there are only 1,700 storage providers servicing fewer than 1,000 users. Most of these users seem to be institutions that were part of an incentive program. Put simply, there doesn't seem to be any organic demand for FIL. And this is something that's been pointed out by many crypto media outlets, and it's a problem that even Juan alluded to in one of his presentations. He said that if all the data in crypto was stored on Filecoin, it wouldn't use up its capacity. This is why Filecoin has been trying to increase its scope of demand by wandering out into the non-crypto world with stuff like that Lockheed Martin partnership. The problem there is that most of Filecoin's storage providers are apparently Chinese, something that's also been highlighted by the media. Of course, this has made many traditional institutions, particularly those based in the US, hesitant to store their data on Filecoin, even with the generous incentives from Protocol Labs and the Filecoin Foundation. This is presumably why Filecoin seems to be starting to dabble in niches like DeFi that are arguably inconsistent with its core mission. Consider that the Glyph protocol has amassed almost $300 million of FIL in less than a year. You could say that this translates to up to $300 million of buying pressure for FIL from those who are looking to earn a yield and also accumulate the points for the airdrop Glyph is reportedly planning. Besides the fact that most of this FIL could very well be coming from the storage providers themselves, the fact of the matter is that Filecoin isn't exactly ground zero for DeFi. In other words, it's unlikely to be competitive with all the other existing and emerging DeFi ecosystems on other smart contract cryptos. This leaves speculation as FIL's main demand driver, and it's certainly good news that we've seen speculation pick up recently. The problem there, though, is that FIL already has a market cap of almost $5 billion. It's hard to see how FIL could pull more than a 10x between now and the crypto bull market top. The caveat is that you can maximize these profits if you're using the right exchanges, and the Coin Bureau deals page happens to have trading fee discounts of up to 60% and sign-up bonuses of up to $50,000 on the best crypto exchanges. These deals are only available for our viewers and they won't be around forever, folks, so take advantage of them before they're gone using the link in the description. Now, whether FIL can pull a 10x or more ultimately depends on Filecoin's upcoming milestones. Filecoin actually appears to have multiple roadmaps, and Juan has done many presentations about Filecoin's future plans as well. The thing is that not all of these roadmaps seem to be up to date. For starters, we have the Protocol Labs roadmap from 2023, whose milestones seem to have been met. The biggest one was the launch of the FVM, which you'll recall occurred last March. It's now likely that Protocol Labs won't be releasing any more roadmaps due to SEC scrutiny. Similarly, the Filecoin Foundation put out a community roadmap in 2022 with detailed milestones. It's not clear how many of these milestones were met, though. What is clear is that the roadmap was abandoned due to low engagement, something revealed by the comments section on the roadmap GitHub. On that note, IPFS also used to have a roadmap on GitHub, but scrapped it in 2023 since there are, quote, multiple companies and teams building IPFS implementations. When you combine this with Protocol Labs spinning out IPFS, it gives the impression that an IPFS airdrop of some kind is in the works. As for Filecoin itself, meanwhile, the comments section from the Filecoin Foundation's GitHub roadmap cites one's blog post about Filecoin's master plan as the new de facto roadmap. This roadmap was published in November 2022, and it consists of 3 parts, each with its own set of technical milestones. The first part is scalable data storage, i.e. maximizing Filecoin's storage and retrieval capacity. The second part is massive data onboarding, i.e. increasing the number of users storing data on Filecoin. And the third part is making data useful, i.e. allowing for computation on Filecoin's data using the FVM. Lo and behold, the FVM seems to have a roadmap of its own, buried deep in Filecoin's documentation. It appears that all of the milestones have been met already. It also reveals that the FVM introduced EVM compatibility, meaning that it's easy for Ethereum developers to build DeFi stuff on Filecoin. Go figure. As a cherry on top, Filecoin released a roadmap for Filecoin Plus, the incentive program that's onboarded most of Filecoin's users. While the roadmap doesn't seem to have any specific milestones per se, the key takeaway is that it wants to decentralize data storage at the geographical level. Newsflash, but this is a tacit admission that Filecoin's lack of adoption is perhaps largely due to the overrepresentation of Chinese storage providers. Not only that, but it simultaneously implies that much of Filecoin's storage provision is still coming from China, despite the government's hostility to crypto there. Note that Bitcoin mining is still happening there too. When it comes to one's roadmap presentations, meanwhile, there are honestly too many milestones to note here. Juan himself admitted that each of these milestones will require its own crypto project, and even suggested that there will be airdrops to FIL holders and lenders in the future. This was back in April 2022. Now, one of the milestones that stuck out for us was scalability, which Juan himself seems to be focused on. That's because he's aware that, as Filecoin grows, it will need to become capable of handling more storage and retrieval requests. He reckons Filecoin will need to scale to trillions of transactions per second for this. And this brings me to the challenges that we foresee for Filecoin. The first challenge is competition. It's easy to forget that Filecoin has technically been in the works since 2014. Back then, it had little to no competition. By the time it launched in 2020, though, many other competitors had already emerged. The advantage that Filecoin's competitors seem to have is that they decided to focus their efforts and even their architectures on addressing a specific niche. By contrast, Filecoin seems dead set on wanting to store all of the world's data, and that's arguably an unrealistic and unattainable goal to have. Speaking of which, you should know that there's a website called the Web3 Index, which keeps track of how much revenue crypto projects like Filecoin are generating. Once upon a time, Filecoin was on that list. Somewhere along the line, though, it was removed for unspecified reasons. Now, we suspect that this is because Filecoin wasn't generating nearly as much in the way of fees when compared to its peers. There doesn't seem to be any other likely explanation because Filecoin is partnered with LivePeer, the video encoding crypto project that created the Web3 Index. They wouldn't remove Filecoin without good reason. And this ties into Filecoin's second challenge, and that's adoption. Now, this challenge is a double-edged sword. On one edge, Filecoin doesn't have very much organic adoption, which is bad for its growth. On the other edge, it seems that Filecoin can't currently scale enough to support exponential growth. As I hinted earlier, we were having issues loading many of the resources associated with Filecoin due to them being hosted on IPFS, regardless of the browser or device. From our perspective, this was either due to IPFS not working properly or to not being able to scale to meet demand. Neither of these are good. Now, to be fair, Filecoin and IPFS are technically two different things. And, to be honest, we have yet to try storing data via Filecoin just because the process appears to be incredibly cumbersome regardless of the app you use. By contrast, competitors like Arweave allow for one-click or even drag-and-drop storage. And as a fun fact, the number of potential users you lose for an online service increases exponentially with each click they must take. The number of steps involved with storing data on Filecoin could very well be the biggest hurdle to its adoption. And never mind the whole process of retrieving this data. And I'll quickly note here that nobody at the Coin Bureau currently holds Arweave nor any other Filecoin competitor for that matter. Anyway, this relates to Filecoin's third challenge, and that is regulation. Like with Solana, the SEC seems to have an axe to grind with Filecoin. Whereas the SEC's scrutiny of Solana likely comes from the regulator's failure around FTX, its scrutiny of Filecoin seems to come from the regulator wanting to look good. Being able to potentially force Protocol Labs to pay a fine worth hundreds of millions of dollars would be a great achievement for an entity like the SEC, hence why it went after Ripple instead of going after actual crypto frauds and scammers. Whatever the case, Filecoin seems to be on thin ice in the United States. And given this apparent fact, it's quite possible that Protocol Labs' efforts to spin out its other projects have less to do with decentralization and more to do with trying to protect its other creations in the event of a crackdown. The most worrying part of the situation is that one doesn't seem to care about this risk. To put things into perspective, he's been doing presentations about Filecoin's roadmap all throughout 2023, long before and after the SEC's scrutiny of Filecoin went public. Perhaps, though, he knows something that we don't, something that suggests Filecoin is actually safe from an SEC crackdown. I certainly hope he does. In sum then, Filecoin is a promising crypto project that's been struggling to find a niche it can capitalize on and has been trying to expand its offerings to increase its adoption. Even with the challenges Filecoin faces, FIL could still perform well during this bull market if it manages to benefit from other narratives. For the time being, though, it seems that Filecoin is poorly positioned for this possibility. If the blow-off top phase of the crypto bull market is in fact beginning, as many believe, then Filecoin may not have time to adjust. And note that you can find out what's been going on in the crypto market using the link down below. And that's all for today's video, folks, so if you found it informative, be sure to smash that like button to let us know. If you want to stay informed about altcoins, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell. And if you want to inform others about Filecoin, then be sure to share this video with them. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.